The warning. Senior researcher Vextal adjusted her sensory membranes as she studied the behavioral data scrolling across her terminal. After 3 cycles of observation, the pattern was undeniable. Every spacefaring species in the known galaxy deliberately avoided confrontation with humans, even when their interests directly conflicted. The Meridian Alliance's Grand Archive chamber hummed with ancient processing cores as she compiled her findings. The behavior defied conventional evolutionary logic. Stronger species typically asserted dominance, while weaker ones formed defensive coalitions. But humans, they existed in a category of their own. Researcher Vextal, your presence is requested in the High Council chamber, the automated system announced, interrupting her thoughts. The council chamber's crystalline walls pulsed with bioluminescent light as she entered. 7 of the most powerful beings in the Alliance rose to greet her, their varied forms, from gaseous to crystalline to organic, representing the diversity of galactic life. Share your findings, researcher, First Speaker Ixel commanded, their plasma form flickering with interest. Honorable Council, I've discovered something extraordinary. Vextal began, activating her presentation matrix. In every documented interaction over the past 1,000 cycles, species at all technological levels actively avoid challenging human interests. Not through fear, as we initially theorized, but through respect. She displayed a recent incident where a Kronth battle fleet, notorious for their aggression, altered their expansion trajectory by 16 parsecs to avoid crossing into human-claimed space. The Kronth had never shown such deference to any other species, even those far more advanced than humans. We've observed 342 similar incidents in the past cycle alone, Vextal continued. The behavior crosses all known species boundaries. Even the hive minds of the Nexus Collective, who operate on completely different logical frameworks, maintain this practice. Second Speaker Zura, their crystalline form refracting light in patterns of concern, interjected. Yet humans remain categorized as a Level 3 civilization. Their visible technology is centuries behind many Alliance members. How do you explain this disparity? That's the fascinating part, Vextal replied, bringing up another dataset. I found references to an event roughly 800 cycles ago. The records are fragmentary, but they suggest humanity demonstrated something that fundamentally changed how they're perceived, not through conquest or destruction, but through some other means. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. First Speaker Ixel's plasma form condensed, a sign of deep thought among their kind. Your recommendation, researcher, they asked. We need to understand what happened 800 cycles ago, Vextal said firmly. The fragments mention something called the Helios Initiative. Most records from that period are sealed under highest-level encryption, scattered across multiple species archives. I request permission to access the sealed archives and assemble a complete picture. The council members communicated silently through their neural network for several moments before First Speaker Ixel responded. Permission granted, but proceed with extreme caution, researcher. There may be good reasons these records were sealed. As Vextal left the chamber, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was about to uncover something that would challenge everything the Alliance thought they knew about humanity's place in the galaxy. The humans themselves never flaunted their power, never made threats, never demanded special treatment. They simply existed, and somehow that existence had become sacred to every other species. In her research chamber, Vextal began composing request protocols to access the sealed archives. The mystery of humanity's special status had puzzled sinologists for centuries. Now, perhaps, they would finally understand why every species in the galaxy seemed to operate on one simple, unspoken rule. Humans are off limits. What she didn't know was that her investigation would uncover a truth far more profound than anyone in the Alliance could have imagined, and reveal why humanity's greatest strength lay not in their ability to wage war, but in something far more fundamental to their nature. The incident. The sealed archives of the Meridian Alliance lay deep within an artificial quantum singularity, where information could be preserved for millennia. Vextal's research credentials granted her access to the outer layers, but the data regarding the Helios initiative remained locked behind security protocols she'd never encountered before. After 3 days of careful negotiation with the Archive's AI guardians, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. The Zarkeli embassy requested a private meeting. The Zarkeli were among the oldest spacefaring races and the only ones who had witnessed the Helios initiative firsthand. Ambassador Cathin, a being of pure energy contained within an ancient environmental suit, awaited her in their private chambers. "You seek dangerous knowledge, young one," Cathin said, their voice resonating directly in Vextal's mind. "But perhaps it is time. The galaxy must remember." The ambassador's consciousness merged with the chamber systems, projecting a scene from 8 centuries ago. Vextal watched as a massive fleet of warships from the now-extinct Drachnid Empire surrounded Earth. "The Drachnids were conquerors who believed might made right," Cathin explained. "They had subjugated 1,000 worlds before reaching Earth. We expected humanity's extinction within days." The projection showed the Drachnid fleet launching their first strike, a barrage of antimatter weapons that should have annihilated Earth's major cities. Instead, the weapons simply vanished. "What happened?" Vextal asked, her sensory membranes quivering with anticipation. "The Helios initiative," Cathin replied. Humanity had discovered something profound: the ability to manipulate probability itself. They didn't just stop the weapons, they rewrote the chance of them ever existing. The Drachnid fleet found itself facing an impossible reality where their weapons had never been manufactured. The projection continued, showing the Drachnid fleet in chaos as more of their technology simply ceased to exist. Not through destruction, but through subtle manipulations of probability that made their creation impossible in the first place. "But here is what truly changed the galaxy," Cathin continued. "When the Drachnids were completely defenseless, humanity revealed their terms: peace, cooperation, and a chance to rebuild as partners rather than conquerors." Vextal watched in amazement as human ships provided aid to the stranded Drachnid fleet, helping them modify their remaining systems to run on non-military power sources. They showed mercy. More than that, Cathin's energy form pulsed with emphasis. They showed a new way. The Drachnids had conquered through force for millennia. Humanity conquered through compassion, wielding power so absolute it made violence obsolete. What happened to the Drachnids? They became humanity's most ardent allies, transforming their empire into a coalition of free worlds. Their civilization finally collapsed centuries later due to internal conflicts, but they never again raised arms against Earth. The projection faded, leaving Vextal with more questions than answers. But how did humans develop such technology? And why don't they use it more openly? Cathin's form dimmed slightly. Those answers remain unknown. Humanity never flaunted their capability, never used it for conquest or control. They simply demonstrated it once, decisively, and then returned to their quiet existence among the stars. Some theorize they view probability manipulation as too powerful to use regularly, fearing its effects on cosmic stability. And that's why everyone avoids confrontation with humans. Fear of this power. "No," Cathin replied. "We avoid confrontation because humanity showed us something greater than power. They showed us wisdom. They could have reshaped the galaxy to their whims, but instead chose to simply protect their right to exist in peace. It's not fear that stays our hands, but profound respect." As Vextal left the Zarkeli embassy, her research notes contained the truth she'd sought, but not the one she'd expected. Humanity's special status didn't come from their mysterious technology, but from their choice to wield ultimate power with ultimate restraint. The real question now was, what would happen if someone was foolish enough to test that restraint? The test. The Vexuri Ascendancy had achieved faster than light travel just 50 years ago. Young, ambitious, and eager to prove themselves among the galactic powers, they viewed the legendary tales of human capability with skepticism. Their High Marshal, Ixora Vex, had built her career on challenging established wisdom. These records are 8 centuries old, she declared to her war council, her crystalline exoskeleton glowing with determination. 8 centuries of humanity doing nothing but exist, trading their primitive goods, expanding at a snail's pace. Where is this godlike power everyone fears? The council chamber, carved from a single massive crystal deep within their homeworld's crust, amplified her words. The assembled generals shifted uncomfortably, their own crystalline forms resonating with uncertainty. High Marshal, General Kex ventured, his form dimming with concern. Even the Meridian Alliance respects human sovereignty. The Zarkali themselves counsel. The Zarkali are old, comfortable in their stagnation. Ixora interrupted. Look at human technology. Chemical rockets for planetary landing. Fusion drives barely capable of 10% light speed. No quantum communications, no dimensional slip space, not even basic gravity manipulation. Are we to believe they secretly possess power over probability itself? She gestured at the holographic display, showing a human mining operation near Vexuri space. They'd been extracting helium-3 from that gas giant for decades. Inefficiently, primitively. One swift strike could secure us resources for a century. The treaties, another general began. Treaties built on ancient superstition. Ixora's crystalline form flashed with passionate colors. The Vexuri didn't rise from our crystal caves by accepting limitations. We test, we probe, we advance. And now we will prove that humanity's protected status is nothing but diplomatic inertia. In her private chambers later, Ixora reviewed the attack plans. The human mining operation was isolated, protected only by basic shields and a small security force. The Vexuri strike fleet would disable their communications first, then offer them a choice. Surrender the facility or face destruction. High Marshal, her aide chimed in. We've detected unusual traffic patterns in the quantum network. The Meridian Alliance is agitated. Researcher Vextal has been sharing her findings about human history. Let them chatter, Ixora dismissed. After we succeed, they'll thank us for breaking this irrational taboo. Prepare the fleet. We strike in 3 cycles. What Ixora didn't realize was that her quantum network surveillance had missed something crucial. While the Vexuri monitored official channels, a simple radio transmission, using technology they considered hopelessly primitive, was already heading toward Earth. In a quiet office in Geneva, a computer system as old as the Helios Initiative received the warning. Its caretakers, descendants of those who had first unlocked humanity's greatest discovery, began their preparations, not with weapons or fleets, but with mathematical models of probability itself. The Vexuri fleet assembled in the dark space between stars, their crystalline ships refracting the distant starlight. 5,000 vessels, the pride of their civilization, prepared to demolish centuries of superstition with a single decisive strike. High Marshal Ixora stood on her flagship's bridge, watching the final preparations. Send the message to all ships, she commanded. Operation Crystal Truth begins in 6 hours. Today, we prove that humans are nothing more than another species among the stars. In that moment, as the young species prepared to challenge humanity's untested reputation, the galaxy held its breath. The Meridian Alliance scrambled to prevent catastrophe. The Zarkali withdrew their ambassadors. And on Earth, in that quiet Geneva office, a small team of mathematicians and physicists began their work. The test of humanity's resolve was about to begin, but not in the way the Vexuri imagined. The response. The Vexuri attack fleet emerged from slip space with perfect precision, their crystalline ships arranging themselves in an attack formation that was both militarily optimal and aesthetically beautiful. High Marshal Ixora allowed herself a moment of pride. The operation was proceeding exactly as calculated. Target their communication arrays first, she commanded. Let's show the galaxy how paper tigers fall. The first sign that something was wrong came from their targeting computers. The mining facility's coordinates kept shifting by fractions of a degree. Not enough to prevent the attack, but enough to be noticed. High Marshal, Her weapons officer reported, "There's some interference with our targeting systems. Nothing serious, just statistical anomalies." Ixora dismissed the concern with a flash of her crystalline form. "Proceed with the attack. Fire on my mark. 3, 2. She never reached one. Across the entire Vexury fleet, every crystalline ship simultaneously experienced what their sensors insisted was impossible. Their hull resonance frequencies shifted by exactly 0.026%. For a species whose technology depended on precisely calibrated crystalline structures, the result was immediate and devastating. No explosions, no weapons fire, no destruction. Instead, 5,000 ships simply went dark as their crystalline cores lost coherence, their systems reverting to basic survival mode to prevent total structural collapse. Ixora stared in disbelief at her emergency displays. Backup systems showed her entire fleet floating powerless, their mighty weapons and advanced drives reduced to so much transparent crystal. Even their quantum communications were silent. That's when the message arrived, not through their advanced networks, but through simple radio waves their backup systems could still receive. "This is the human mining facility Theta 17. We're picking up signs of distress from your fleet. Do you require assistance?" The message was followed by another, this one directly to Ixora's command console. "The resonance shift is temporary. Your ships will regain full functionality in exactly 6 hours. We recommend using this time for reflection. Office of Probability Management, Earth." Across the galaxy, the news spread quickly. The Meridian Alliance Council convened an emergency session. The Zarkali ambassadors nodded knowingly, and researcher Vextal, watching from an observation post, finally understood what her studies had been trying to tell her. Humanity hadn't disabled the Vexury fleet through overwhelming force or superior technology. They had simply adjusted the probability of crystal resonance across a specific region of space, a change so subtle it barely registered, yet precise enough to neutralize an entire invasion fleet without causing any permanent damage. More messages arrived at the disabled fleet, still through simple radio waves. "We're dispatching maintenance vessels to your position. They carry temporary power cores compatible with your systems, should you wish to accept them. Our facility's cafeteria has been expanded to accommodate crystalline life forms. Your crews are welcome to wait there while your ships reset. We've taken the liberty of preparing a comprehensive report on crystal resonance probability matrices. You may find it enlightening." Each message was polite, helpful, and carried the unmistakable subtext: "This is but a fraction of what we could do." In her powerless flagship, High Marshal Ixora received one final private message. "Your species' drive to test boundaries is admirable, but there are safer ways to learn. When your ships restore, we invite you to send a scientific delegation to Earth. There are principles of probability we'd be happy to discuss." As she stood in her darkened bridge, watching human maintenance ships approach with offered aid, Ixora finally understood what 8 centuries of galactic civilization had learned. Humanity's true power lay not in their ability to defeat enemies, but in their talent for turning potential adversaries into students of a better way. The understanding. 3 months after the Vexury incident, the Meridian Alliance's Grand Archive Chamber hosted an unprecedented gathering. Researcher Vextal stood before representatives from every major spacefaring civilization, including a delegation from Earth, a rare appearance that had drawn even the most reclusive species to attend. More surprising was the presence of High Marshal Ixora, her crystalline form now modified with intricate patterns that reflected her recent studies on Earth. The former warrior stood not as a conquered foe, but as a testament to transformation. The Helios Initiative, Vextal began, was never about the technology. "We've been asking the wrong questions for centuries. We thought humanity discovered a way to manipulate probability, but that wasn't their true breakthrough." The human representative, Dr. Sarah Chen, nodded for her to continue. Unlike the other attendees with their elaborate environmental suits or energy containment fields, she sat in simple business attire, her presence somehow both ordinary and extraordinary. Humanity, Vextol continued, discovered something far more fundamental. They found a way to see the connections between all things, to understand that the universe isn't a collection of separate events, but a web of interrelated possibilities. Ixora stepped forward, her crystalline form resonating with newfound wisdom. They could have used this knowledge to dominate. Instead, they chose to demonstrate it only when necessary, and always with a greater purpose than mere victory. Dr. Chen spoke for the first time, her voice carrying easily through the chamber. We learned early in our development of probability mechanics that power without wisdom is self-defeating. The ability to reshape reality comes with the understanding that the gentlest touch often creates the most lasting change. The assembled representatives murmured as displays showed the Vexury fleet, now transformed into a deep space research flotilla. Where weapons arrays had once been mounted, sophisticated sensor equipment now studied the quantum fabric of space itself. This is why humans are considered off-limits, Vextol explained. Not because they're dangerous, though they certainly can be, but because they represent a path forward that transcends our traditional understanding of power and progress. We thought we were going to prove human power was a myth, Ixora added, her form pulsing with remembered humility. Instead, we learned that their greatest strength lies in knowing when not to use their power at all. Dr. Chen stood, drawing all eyes in the chamber. The universe is vast and full of wonders. We discovered one such wonder, yes, but it's not our place to dictate how the galaxy develops. We only intervene when necessary to preserve the freedom of all species to find our own path, just as we found ours. As the assembly concluded, Vextol watched the various species mingling, sharing insights and perspectives with a new depth of understanding. The human delegation quietly departed, leaving behind not demonstrations of power or grand proclamations, but something far more valuable. Questions that would drive centuries of peaceful exploration and discovery. In her research notes, Vextol wrote her final conclusion. Humanity's greatest achievement isn't their mastery of probability, but their demonstration that true power lies not in the ability to change everything, but in the wisdom to change only what must be changed, and always in service of a greater harmony. The Meridian Alliance officially archived her research with a new classification, not as a warning or a historical record, but as a guide for emerging civilizations. The message was clear. Humans aren't off-limits because they're powerful, but because they show us what we can become when we choose wisdom over force, understanding over dominance, and restraint over conquest. In the centuries that followed, countless young species would reach for the stars and encounter humanity's quiet presence. Some, like the Vexury, would test the boundaries, but each would learn the same profound truth. In a universe of infinite possibilities, the most powerful choice is often to show others a better way forward. Dr. Chen's final words to the assembly became a cornerstone of galactic diplomatic training. The universe doesn't need guardians or conquerors. It needs teachers and students, all learning together. That's the real probability we worked so hard to maximize.